Hamartia derives from the Greek word meaning to miss the mark or to err. It primarily refers to an error in judgment that can arise from ignorance or a moral shortcoming. In his discussion of tragedy and the tragic hero in Poetics, Aristotle explains that the tragic hero should be a person whose misfortune occurs not due to vice or depravity, but because of some error. For example, Oedipus impulsively kills his father and unknowingly marries his mother. Antigone defies the state law out of stubbornness and defiance. Phèdre is driven by her consuming passion for Hippolyte. In the novel Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein's arrogant belief that he can usurp the roles of God and nature in creating life results in devastating consequences for him, exemplifying Hamartia. A character's tragic flaw isn't necessarily morally reprehensible. In fact, the flaw can sometimes be an apparently positive quality, such as trusting others. This complexity makes Hamartia an intricate concept, as it links both good and bad qualities to tragic outcomes. In the case of a tragic error, the repercussions are typically disproportionately larger than the error itself. Due to this, some scholars argue that misfortune, or fate, plays a significant role in the unraveling of events involving Hamartia. The concept of Hamartia first appears in Aristotle's Poetics, the earliest known work of dramatic theory, written in 335 BCE. Aristotle argued that a good tragedy is neither about the downfall of a great man nor the success of a villain, but about the demise of someone who is simply human, neither evil nor a model of virtue, and, in that regard, relatable to the audience. To be human is to be flawed, Aristotle points out. Therefore, he argues, tragedies should tell the story of someone whose downfall is caused not by greed or vice, but by some error or frailty. This, according to Aristotle, is Hamartia. Although Hamartia can be found in many works that do not align with Aristotle's definition of tragedy, it is important to note that only works that have tragic heroes or protagonists whose actions lead to their own downfall can be said to contain examples of Hamartia. Especially in classical tragedies, hubris, or excessive self-confidence, is a common trait that exemplifies Hamartia. It's worth noting that the flaw or error leading to a character's downfall is typically not a morally condemnable one. Rather, it might be a fateful mistake as simple as leaving a window open, or even an apparently positive quality, such as loving too intensely. Despite being over 2,000 years old, debate about the true meaning of Hamartia is alive and well. The main disagreement among scholars today is over whether the term refers to a tragic flaw or a tragic error. A tragic flaw connotes a quality inherent to the character's personality, such as pride or impulsiveness. A tragic error, on the other hand, has nothing to do with a particular character's personality. Rather, it is a mistake anyone could conceivably make, such as missing the bus or mishearing something. Some scholars maintain that equating Hamartia with tragic error is most faithful to Aristotle's original definition and to the etymological root of the word, which means missing the mark. Yet Aristotle's mention of frailty supports the opposing argument that Hamartia refers to some innate quality of the hero which leads to their demise. This debate about the nature of Hamartia is as old as literature itself, so there is no easy answer. All one needs to know is that there are several slightly different definitions of hamartia, and people adhere to one or the other. Hamartia is not simply the major flaw of a protagonist. The term can only be used in the context of tragedies, or stories with tragic heroes, where the protagonist's own actions lead to their downfall. Some characters may be deeply flawed, but do not possess hamartia if their flaws don't ultimately lead to their downfall. Aristotle discusses hamartia in Poetics, describing it as a powerful narrative device where a rich and powerful hero, neither exceptionally virtuous nor villainous, falls into misfortune due to a mistake or error. Scholars debate whether hamartia should be defined as a tragic flaw or a tragic error. Poetic justice mandates that dramatic poets, philosophers, and priests promote moral behavior through their work. In the 18th century, French dramatists used hamartia as a vice to be punished. Racine's Phèdre, an adaptation of Euripides' Hippolyte, exemplifies this approach. Racine states in his preface to Phèdre, translated by R.C. Knight, the failings of love are treated as real failings. The passions are offered to view only to show all the ravage they create. And vice is everywhere painted in such hues that its hideous face may be recognized and loathed. The play depicts a royal family's tragic downfall due to their vices, rage, lust, and envy. On the other hand, Isabel Hyde, in her 1963 article The Tragic Flaw, Is It a Tragic Error?, argues against the interpretation of hamartia as a tragic flaw. She cites Butcher's translation of Poetics, which describes hamartia as both error and defect in character. Noting that Butcher's second definition is not a natural expression for a flaw in behavior, Hyde also references A.C. Bradley's Shakespearean tragedy, which describes the hero's defect as intertwined with his admirable qualities. Hyde critiques the tragic flaw argument by examining examples from Hamlet and Oedipus Rex. She notes that attributing Hamlet's downfall to thinking too much fails to account for his impulsive actions and leads to problematic conclusions about his behavior. Similarly, she argues that Oedipus' downfall is more accurately attributed to his ignorance of his true parentage, rather than a character flaw. Leon Golden, in his 1978 article Hamartia, Arti, and Oedipus, compares scholarship on hamartia, emphasizing the intellectual error aspect. He cites Butcher's interpretation, which describes hamartia as both a single great error and a single great defect in character. Philip W. Harsh supports the tragic flaw interpretation, noting Oedipus' excessive rage and murder at the crossroads. Conversely, P. Van Braam and O. Hay view hamartia as an intellectual error resulting from lack of information, not a moral failing. J. M. Bramer and Dawes suggest that divine intervention may influence hamartia. Bramer cites a passage from Oedipus Rex where dark powers lead Oedipus to his actions, indicating divine or demonic guidance. Dawes contends that a protagonist's demise can result from fate, divine wrath, human enemies, or personal error, with divine plans aligning with Aristotle's idea of plot progression. Golden, however, argues against divine intervention, asserting that hamartia is primarily an intellectual error with potential moral elements. He separates hamartia from the concept of divine retribution, conflicting with Dawes and Bramer's views.